Hello, hello! Welcome to another episode of Prehistory in the Dark. I am your host, Darkness the Curse, and before we begin, as always, thank you so much to my generous patrons and my channel members over at our sister channel, History in the Dark. You are the reason why this content remains back! Like never before. I know, it's been forever. And I'm not going to bore you with the reasons why I took a break from doing this, but either way, I have extra time all of a sudden. And I thought it'd be nice to give this channel another shot, as I really do enjoy talking about my prehistoric creatures, but I also decided today to do something a little bit different than what I usually do. You guys know I don't usually comment on other people's works, but this relates directly to what I'm doing here. And I felt like it was something that I needed to address, at least a little bit. A lot of people have addressed this man, but I wanted to do it myself. It was just one of those things. This is a gentleman by the name of Kent Hovind. What we're going to do today is we're going to discuss a video of his. And he does a lot of videos. He still uploads videos even now. And the thing about Kent is that he is a hardline creationist. And he's to the point where even other creationists don't like him. That's how bad he is. Which is impressive, frankly, because as some of you may be unaware, creationism is a theory that everything in the Bible is verbatim. Like, it's literally exactly how it happened. 7 days, Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, the whole shebang. That is exactly what happened, period. Now, Kent tends to square off with atheists. I am not an atheist. In fact, I am Christian. Fun fact. And the thing about that is, it is possible for a belief in God and a higher power to go hand in hand with scientific theory. It is totally okay to believe in both. You realize that, right? Like, does nobody get that but me anymore? Anyway, Kent doesn't necessarily think dinosaurs don't exist, or didn't exist, rather. Because there's some creationists that think dinosaurs never existed and their bones were put there by Satan to confuse people. No, that's not Kent. Kent thinks they existed, but more importantly, still do exist. That's one of his running things, that dinosaurs are actually all around us. And no, I promise you, he is not talking about birds. He is not. He is talking about serious, genuine dinosaurs that apparently seriously, genuinely exist. Another fun fact about Kent, actually a couple more, he runs a fundamentalist Christian educational park, a dinosaur park, where he tries to educate kids about, well, his belief when it comes to where dinosaurs came from and where they live and etc., etc. So there's a lot of wrongness to everything he portrays in the park. Additionally, he was imprisoned for, I believe, 10 years for tax evasion. So that's another fun fact. Also, just 2 years ago in 2020, or was it last year he was convicted? I think last year he was convicted, 2021. It happened in 2020, he was convicted in 21, of domestic violence against his estranged wife. So, real class act is where I'm going with Kent right now. But we're going to focus on the dinosaurs, because that's what we do here. I'm not going to get into everything else. I just wanted you to know the kind of person we're dealing with, in case you think I'm being too harsh on him. Because I also think he kind of deserves it. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Good evening. Here's an interesting article someone sent me. 5 extinct animals that may still exist. The Epic Times. And it's theepictimes.com. And you follow the link, and it says there are 5 extinct animals that might still exist. Which, of course, I've always said, how can you prove the extinction of anything? Wouldn't you have to be all places at the same time to know something is extinct? Now, I'm not saying animals aren't extinct. I'm just saying it's a very difficult, pretty high threshold, very difficult thing to prove anything is extinct.
Okay, a couple things. First of all, there is a process in place when it comes to proving if an animal is extinct. Usually it has to do with When was the last time such an animal was seen? How many of them were there estimated? Scientists do, biologists do, have a method to figuring out whether an animal is really extinct. Now, it is true that there have been cases where an animal was declared extinct and suddenly one appeared. That is a thing that happens. Not very often, but it does occur. But if something as large as some dinosaurs were still around, I don't think it could hide very well. Or at all, now that I think about it. Oh, another fun fact about Kent here. He is a doctor of what? Nobody knows. But he calls himself a doctor. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Kent is not actually a doctor of anything. So there's that too.
Anyway, they're talking about the passenger pigeon and the thing. But number 5 on this list, I'll let you go there for yourself if you want, is Mokele-mbembe. Mokele-mbembe, which I have talked about for 2 decades. The living dinosaur in search of Mokele-mbembe, I believe is how they pronounce it. This one by Joey Brill, Bernard Heuvelmans. Roy Mackle wrote the book. He was a biology teacher at University of Chicago. Book cover is a little torn here. But fascinating book. There have been many, many expeditions and people claiming in the Congo, Africa, there are still small 20-foot little living dinosaur. There's what the natives say it looks like right there.
Okay, so in this particular video, Kent has a fascination with cryptids, especially ones that are said to resemble dinosaurs or aquatic marine reptiles. Marine reptiles, aquatic marine reptiles, that's the same thing. Anyway, he has a fascination with that because naturally he thinks, well, this thing apparently is out there, and therefore it proves that all the dinosaurs are still around somewhere, even though we can't actually see them. But I'm going to try to debunk most of the cryptids he brings up. Because I understand that cryptozoology is a thing that some people really are fascinated by. And I'm sure there are animals that we still haven't discovered. Is there some truth to some cryptids? Maybe, but for the most part, I don't really hold much confidence in most of them. Mokele-mbembe, the legend goes back to before European colonization. Here's my issue with it being a sauropod, which is what it's generally portrayed as these days. Prior to the discovery of sauropod remains and the identification of said remains as being, dinosaurs, it wasn't described as such. They only described it that way after the fact. Prior to that, it was said to be some kind of mist, or fog monster, like some kind of ethereal thing. It was not a solid, genuine creature. So I find it just a little bit suspicious that people only started describing it as a sauropod after we already knew that sauropods were things that once existed.
Now, I don't know. I've never been there. All I can do is read about it. But this book on prehistoric survivors was fabulous. Let me get this thing out of the way here. Prehistoric survivors. I bet I have read over 200 books on the topic. Carl Baugh has done great research on dinosaurs that may still be living. He's at the Creation Museum in Glen Rose, Texas. William Gibbons has been over there twice. He and I wrote this book together, Claws, Jaws, and Dinosaurs. I don't know if we have any of these left, if it's still in print. Theodore, maybe there are some left? They still sell it. Okay. Bill Gibbons and I, let's see, there's Bill's picture there, wrote the book. Now, Bill has a website. Let me get that up for you. He's been there twice to the swamp. It's called the Anomalist, A-N-O-M-A-L-I-S-T, anomalist.com. Talk to Bill. He's been there twice.
I don't want to talk to Bill. I don't want to talk to any of you. It's not a thing I want to do. I genuinely believe I would be better off not doing that at all.
Ogopogo I've talked to Arlene Gall, and people have written about the Ogopogo, in Lake Okanagan in British Columbia, Canada. The Lake Champlain monster has been reported as being a plesiosaur in Lake Champlain between New York and Vermont.
Oh god, Champ and Ogopogo. Okay, look, there's not a friggin' plesiosaur in any of these lakes. That's impossible. Let me explain this. Plesiosaurs, A, existed in salt water, as we understand it. Therefore, the notion of them being able to live in fresh water is probably a little unlikely. Even if they evolved to be able to do that, a large creature like that surviving in these relatively smaller lakes compared to the vast oceans they once inhabited doesn't... No, that's not how that works. Also, many of these creatures have been around for a long time in terms of stories about them. Therefore, they would have to either be immortal, or there would have to be more than one of them, lowering the likelihood of them staying hidden for this long. Also, and this is really important to me because it drives me up the friggin' wall, so many of these, as Kent's book, well, not his book, but the book he showed, show the plesiosaur raising its friggin' neck, as some of the sightings say that they're doing. Plesiosaurs couldn't do that. They didn't do that. Their necks just didn't have the tissue and the bone structure necessary to accomplish that angle. So, basically what I'm saying is, if there is some kind of creature in these lakes, that's safe. For the sake of the argument, let's say there is. I don't think there is, but let's say there is. It's not a plesiosaur. It literally can't be.
I talked to Sandy Mancy. My interview with her is on my video number 2, or 3. 2. I don't even know. It's been a long time since I did my seminar. But my video about dinosaurs in the Bible, video 3. And I talked to Sandy. I said, Sandy, do you think you saw a dinosaur? She said, no. I know I saw a dinosaur.
What's that you say, Big Chungus? Sandy definitely didn't see a dinosaur? I can't believe you would say that, Big Chungus. Also, we're still talking about plesiosaurs, plesiosaurs weren't dinosaurs. Dr. Kent would know that if he had any idea what he was talking about. These were marine reptiles, not dinosaurs.
She and her husband and 2 kids watched it for 10 minutes. Anyway, that book, Sea Monsters off California's Central Coast, this one was excellent if you want to get into this study of what is called cryptozoology. Now, most of these authors are not Christians, but they're open to say, hey, look, maybe there are some still alive, like the Cadborosaurus, or Missionaries and Monsters, another book by Bill Gibbons about the topic of how many missionaries have reported things. Of course, Loch Ness Monster, there have been who knows how many books written on that. I've read a lot of them.
And there isn't anything in Loch Ness. Oh my goodness, I am so over Loch Ness. Okay, I am. I think Loch Ness is over itself. Because, real talk for a second, how many expeditions, how many scans, how many sonar, there's nothing in that loch that would be anything close to the monster that people describe. Okay, it's not there. There's not something there. I refuse to believe there's something there. If I am proven wrong, great. I'll be the first to admit it. But as it stands right now, there's nothing in that stupid loch, and I just want people to stop talking about it.
New England's Marvelous Monsters. Where did I get this one? I don't remember. It's been a while. But it's a variety of things besides what may be living dinosaurs. But The Mystery of the Loch Ness Monster, that was a good one. Bernard Heuvelmans on the Track of Unknown Animals, that was a great one, pretty good sized book. Also, I think, Heuvelmans wrote this one on the Track of Unknown Animals, the later version. That was the abridged one. This one is, some skeptic will get after me and say you didn't have the right number of pages. Okay, we'll get it right for you here.
Yes, Kent. Yes. Because on the long list of things I'm worried about, right at the top, at number 1, is are you gonna lie about how many pages are in that book? You better get it right. Otherwise, your entire argument is void and invalid, because everything else has made total sense so far.
675 pages, 77 pages, counting the index. Anyway, he had a very thorough catalog of all of these sightings at the time of creatures like that. Monsters of the Sea, Richard Ellis writes about strange creatures. Bottom line, it's very simple. The Bible teaches God made everything about 6,000 years ago. The earth is not millions of years old.
Yes, it is. In fact, if you want to get technical, the Earth is billions. Not the way we know it, but, yeah. Any scientists, real doctors with real doctorates, who really study this stuff will tell you, assure you, promise you, that it's millions, if not billions of years old. Okay?
Dinosaurs lived with man. They were called dragons in most cultures or something like that.
No, that's... Okay, well... Alright, let me try to explain this. First of all, no. No, they didn't, unless we're counting birds. Non-avian dinosaurs did not dwell with man. We did not appear on the scene until millions of years after the last ones died out. We can see that in the rock, in the layers, in the fossils, and actually know that. Alright, A. B. The dragon thing. This is something that creationists bring up a lot, but there's an easy way to explain this, because they point out that dragons are all over. All such mythos, all over the world. There's, Eastern dragons, there's European dragons, even South American cultures like the Mayans, Aztecs, Incas, had creatures in their own mythologies that were basically dragons. And people are like, see, they're obviously describing dinosaurs. Well, sort of. Because back then, naturally those old cultures, most of them wouldn't have had the understanding of the millions of years that the Earth has been around. And they would stumble upon, presumably eventually, from their own architecture, from their own mining, or whatever they were doing, on fossils, bones of dinosaurs. They would, of course, find them just like we do. But to them, they would be bones, which, of course, but they would be fresh remains from their eyes. Because if they find bones, they are like, oh, this is a real thing that really existed, which they were, but they wouldn't necessarily know how old they were or be able to tell. So they would assume that these are creatures that are not only still around, but in their general area. And it's believed that it's likely how many cultures all over the world independently described things that can be called dragons, because they would find dinosaur fossils, carnivores, big teeth, huge claws like talons, and some of them, if they found a pteranodon or something related, there'd be wings too, and that's it became as over the generations, over the thousands of years some of these civilizations existed. They would, of course, just build up and describe this mythos. So in a way, Kent's not wrong when he says that dragons were dinosaurs. Also, he's totally wrong when he says that dragons were dinosaurs, because he's right but he's wrong. You see what I mean? It's classic Kent, actually.
In the flood, of course, the water-dwelling ones had a blast, had plenty of water. But those that lived on land, Noah took 2 of each kind on board the ark.
Okay, none of us sensible people agree with Ken about anything, but is anyone else here really amused at the thought of Noah trying to corral a male and a female T-Rex onto the ark? Because frankly, that scene just amuses me. That's where I'm at with it.
All the animals were friendly and vegetarian, according to Genesis 1, 29 and 30. After the flood, these animals died off for one reason. They weren't living as long, just like we see the people's lifespans drop off after the flood.
The lifespan issue has been brought up many times, and people have tried to explain it, but I think it's actually very easy. To an ancient Mesopotamian person, that would be the region where the Bible, the Hebrews, it was the Torah, the Old Testament's basically the Torah, Judaism, the Hebrews would have written it down. What was a year to them? They this person lived for 900 years, which is what they would say. But what was a year at that time? What was their context for a year? Because, as it's written, did they actually mean a month? Did they mean a week? We aren't sure. We know what a year is. We have a very, very rigid definition for what year is to us now. But back then, what was a year? Depends on the culture. Depends on their calendar. Depends on how they viewed it. Because if you ask multiple different cultures from all over the world 10,000 years ago, or 9,000 years, whatever, you would probably get multiple different answers to that question.
From 900 pre-flood to 400 and then 200 and then 100. Look at Genesis 5 and Genesis 11. The dates are all right there.
No, they aren't. The dates are not right. That's not the... A date is a very specific measurement of time, a very specific indicator of time. Genesis does not have a very specific anything. Because it's a story to explain the creation of man. Not necessarily one that should be taken violently literally. It was written in a way that would be in context to people of the time so they could understand and comprehend who God was. You don't have to be so literal about it, Kent. You don't have to. You can be better. Okay? I'm just saying.
Or get one of my charts. So the same thing's happening to all the animals. The giant dinosaurs probably couldn't live long enough to get to reproductive age.
Okay, you're just saying things now. Based on what? Like, dinosaurs probably grew really fast. They were probably mature within 4 or 5 years. I mean, I understand there are some theories that sauropods would have lived for hundreds of years, but that doesn't mean they didn't get to sexual maturity in a reasonable amount of time. You know, within 10 years, I'd say. But it also is just a guess. Are you just implying that after the flood, the dinosaurs magically stopped living as long and couldn't even get out of their teenage years? Like, what do you... Why? Give me a reason why that would be, because I don't think you ever do.
And so they would die out as a species or go extinct. Anyway... Or man was hunting them or killing them, calling them dragons.
Well, again, I don't believe Kent is right at all, although that does definitely sound like something we would do. I'm gonna be honest with you. That sounds like peak humanity right there.
As the population of people grew after the flood, the population of dinosaurs would go down, because nobody wants their kids out playing in the woods when there's a dragon out there. So they would figure out a way to kill it, and whoever can kill the dragon would be a hero, like the Beowulf story in 500, whenever that was. AD in Europe someplace. I forgot where.
See, you don't even know what you're talking about. Also, are you really quoting Beowulf as a method of historical fact? Because Beowulf is... You realize Beowulf is a tale of fiction, right? Like, it literally starts with him stabbing a monster, and then stabbing that monster's mom, and then only later does he fight a dragon, who was only angry because someone stole its cup. And really, just give the cup back, man. It's not worth it.
Okay, anyway, bottom line is, the Christian perspective makes a whole lot more sense.
The creationist perspective, and no, it doesn't. Especially if you're saying it.
Dinosaurs lived with man. Noah would have taken them on the ark, probably babies. People have known them all through history. They have gradually gone extinct, most of them. There could be a few still alive today. I don't know. I've never seen one, but I've interviewed people who claim they have.
Well, a couple things about that. Yeah, you have. You've probably seen a bird. I'm pretty sure you've seen a bird at some point. So you've technically seen a dinosaur. This isn't a dinosaur, by the way. This is my cat. He decided he needed attention right this second, even though I'm busy working. Anyway, B. You've interviewed people who've said they have. Have you considered, and follow me on this, Kent. Follow me on this. Hear me out. Just hear me out. Have you considered that they could be big, stupid liars? Because people do lie. It is a thing. I know the Bible says we're not supposed to do that, but people do sin pretty often, actually.
And there have been hundreds and hundreds of books written on the topic by people with nothing to gain but ridicule as a general rule. So
yeah, I can't fathom what a bunch of writers would have to gain from writing something that notoriously generates sales. Like, are you serious? Nothing to gain? Dude, the cryptid industry is massively profitable if you know how to do it. Like, you write about that kind of stuff, people are interested in the unknown. Like, perhaps they'll get some ridicule from skeptics, but, if they sold, 100,000 copies of their books, so friggin' what?
I think it's very possible there are some still alive that they're claiming were extinct 70 million years ago, and they're not.
Well, for one thing, it's generally assumed that they died out about 66 million years ago. Some people say 65, but, it's only off by a million years. Who needs to get specific? Also, it does vary depending on which species we're talking about and which, time period they dwell, because dinosaurs lived for a very long time. Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. So depending on which period we're talking about, minimum is 66, 65, whatever, million years ago, but, it could be 150 million to all the way up to 300 million. What kind of dinosaur are you talking about, Kent? Oh, wait, that's right, you think the Earth is only like 6,000 years old, because you're wrong.
Nothing is 70 million years old. God made the world in 6 days, just like he said he did. Anyway, and you can trust the book.
There's a lot of rocks that are probably about that old. If I had to wager, I'd have to ask a geologist. Also, he didn't make the Earth in 6 days. He made the universe in 6 days. 7 if you count his rest day, because he rested on the 7th. But technically speaking, it's true that he created the Earth, but the Earth was part of the process, because first he had to create light, and then, stars and the entire galaxies. Like, he literally spent the first few days creating the universe as we know it before he even got to Earth. So, technically, even when you quote the Bible in your own little world, you're still wrong.
The Bible mentions dragons, I think, 22 times. And you can read Job chapter 38 and 39 and 40 and 41. In Job 40, God talks to Job about a creature called Behemoth that has a tail like a cedar tree.
If I hear one more word about the friggin' behemoth, I am gonna scream. The behemoth is not a dinosaur, okay? It's not even described as a dinosaur. It's not described as anything close to a dinosaur. People assume that, but if you actually read what's written in there, it's not a dinosaur. Do you know what it probably is? It's probably an old-school explanation depiction of a hippo, because it was water-dwelling, lived under reeds, and was huge and scary, and yes, hippos are that exact thing. It was probably someone describing a hippo, which would fit the description of a behemoth if you ask me. Also, not a dinosaur. Not at all.
A dinosaur of some kind.
No! No, Kent! No!
Anyway, we cover all that on video number 3, Dinosaurs in the Bible, which you can get from our website, 2peter3.com, or you can go to creationtoday.org and get that. Hope that helps answer the question, but yes, I think it's hard to prove the extinction of anything, and I certainly think it'd be silly to claim dinosaurs lived 70 million years ago. How could you possibly know such a thing?
Well, dating sediments and the layers where the fossils appear, and understanding literally anything outside of what you decide in your own head would probably help you comprehend how we know that. How everyone with any sense knows that.
They're lying to you, folks. You can trust God's word. And if you're not a Christian, get in the family tonight. Say, Lord, I'm a sinner, but I believe you died for me and rose from the dead. Would you please save me? Come live in my heart and forgive me.
See, what's hysterical to me about this whole thing is that, they target dinosaurs because they feel so threatened by them. That threatens the Christianity as a religion. I never heard of a single paleontologist utilizing dinosaurs as a medium for saying your religion is a hollow lie. Like, I don't think any reasonable paleontologist has ever said such a thing. It's just finding out more about the world. Who's to say that God didn't once allow dinosaurs to exist. Perhaps he simply started the process of evolution. Perhaps it was, there's a whole bunch of mysteries to the world that even science hasn't figured out yet. But you don't need to be so rigid with everything. You can still believe in a higher power and understand that science is usually in line with how the world really works. If anything, I view science as a whole as a way to understand how God built the universe to function as it does. What's wrong with that? You don't have to be so fixated on the specific story that you insist has to be the really real way it happened, even when there is mounting evidence that no, that is not how it happened. I'm sorry.
That's about something like what I prayed 46 and a half years ago, and something began to grow inside. There's Jesus living in me, like, whoa, this is cool.
Did he tell you to beat your wife? Because I feel like Jesus would be against that. Kent, I'm just throwing it out there.
And now all of a sudden, my old nature that wants to do wrong has a constant fight with this new nature that wants to do right. It's amazing watching things change internally. That you're not doing it. It's God in you doing it. You can have the same thing. Ask Him tonight. Make today your birthday into God's family. And then, just like planting a seed, you just add water. Just read the Word, and you'll grow. Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you, Kent, for ruining my day. Okay, look. I don't know if it was clear, but I love dinosaurs, okay? I do. Genuinely, alright? Legitimately, ever since I was a little kid, I absolutely adore dinosaurs. Without question. But, and I would love to be able to say that they are still around, that I could go somewhere besides the tree outside to see the bird, and see a stegosaurus, to see a tyrannosaurus, to see an ankylosaurus, or any of the other, dinosaurs I have up here, or even the non-dinosaurs, like mosasaur over here, big chunkus. But I can't do that, because they are extinct, okay? And no amount of, but I said, she said, and they said, and it without substantial proof. You need proof, evidence, verifiable evidence, a clear picture, a clear video, a actual, recent remains would also be helpful, because those have also never been found when it comes to any of these cryptids. If you give me proof, I am on. Totally. No question. If there's verifiable evidence, I am on board. But as long as everything you got to show me is hearsay, I'm out. Did I mention he's a fake doctor that beats his wife?